The first challenge that we need to solve here is how to grab the local time. So before we do anything, we're going to create a new C# script that's going to act as our behavior for the clock, because we know we're going to have to communicate with the clock and update the text. So let's create a new C# script, mono behavior, and we're going to call it clock. Once we have that clock script created, we're going to select our clock game object, and we'll drag on the clock script. Now that we have it on, if we look at our clock object, we can also see that we have a time text mesh component. And that is actually what we want to update to be, for example, if it's 7:32, I guess in the morning or whatever time it is, we're going to put 7:32 in this format. All right, so we'll put it back to 0 for now. We're going to have to modify this eventually. But right now we're only focused on how do we get the local time. So once we have our script created and it's on the clock, we can open it up and we can begin talking about how do we go about doing this? And what happens if you have no idea how to get started on something? And truthfully, I don't know how to get the local time. And that's part of being a software engineer. It's the idea that I'm going to problem solve how to get the local time. So what can we do? Well, we can do two things. We could open up ChatGPT and we could ask it, how do I get the local time in C# for Unity? Or I could specifically go to Google and I could write in the same thing. Let's take a look at both options and maybe that's going to help us solve this challenge. So here I'm just going to type out how to get local time C# and you'll see here that there is a datetime to local time method. And if we were to read through this, it would ultimately tell us about how this works. It's an object whose kind property is local, whose value is the local time, equivalent to the value of the current datetime object or datetime max value if the converted value is too large to be represented by a datetime object. Sometimes when you read this stuff, it might not always make the most sense, and that's okay. What we need to do is get a high-level understanding and then read the example. The following example demonstrates the toLocalTime method. Note that the exact output depends on the current culture and the local time zone of the system on which it's run. And if we look at this, what are they doing? They're specifying a datetime object, which is part of the system namespace here. You can see here they're using system, and they're creating local datetime. From there, what are they doing? They're just doing enter a date and time. It looks like they're reading and you're parsing it. So for this one, it looks like they're actually accepting it as like a value. We don't really want to do that. I want to actually just print out whatever the current time is. And if we look at this, they have local datetime equals datetime.parse. We don't want that. Local datetime.toUniversal time. And I'm curious, there is this property here called local datetime. So if we just define possibly a datetime object, then we might be able to just access, hey, what time is it? And we can print out that information. Let's see here. The following example uses the specify kind method to demonstrate how the kind property influences. And if we look at this, get the date and time for the current moment adjusted to the local time zone. Here we go. Date time object now equals datetime.now. I can't think of something that's more simplistic. That is definitely going to be how we want to go about this. And we could just print that out, for example. From there, we could also open up ChatGPT. And let's ask it, how do I print out the current time in C# for Unity? And we're going to specify I want my local time. And it says print out the local time C#. We can use the datetime class from the system namespace. So using system, here's a simple example of how to print the current local time. And here we go. Local time equals datetime.now. And then here, print the local time to the Unity console, debug.log, the current local time plus the local time dot toString. And they're actually specifying a format here. And this format here, I don't fully understand, but we could use ChatGPT to help us understand it. And you'll see here that it says formats the time to show hours, minutes, and seconds, and even AM, PM. That might be pretty cool to have on the clock. So that's exactly what it's doing. So using this knowledge, we should be able to solve this challenge, and I'll see you in the challenge review. We just want to focus on printing out to the console what time is it.